I think the funniest part of this is how much work these guys put into dressing up for this game and not preparing for it. Now, these four fucking Honda Civics, all with career losing records, ERAs over 4, or negative WAR stats for the 2026 season.
Hold up, the internet is absolutely melting down over a baseball hat. 3 players wrote a Bible verse on their uniform, and the backlash is spiraling out of control. You have to see how deep this goes.
Time that Landon Roop or one of these players gets up on the mound, they're going to have to think, should I be cheering for this person? Because they won't cheer for me. And that's an experience that goes beyond a boycott. That's an experience that's like, am I welcome here in this place?
Arnie Johnson is a longtime Giants fan, the parent of 2 LGBTQ children, and a member of Rainbow Families Action, a group of parents and allies of trans and non-binary young people.
To me, that is deeply offensive, and it's something that nobody in the Bay Area should tolerate. I would like for the Giants to offer to meet with families and members of the LGBT community.
Let's pause and unpack the exact wording being used here. This activist is going on record stating that a simple Bible reference on a baseball cap is deeply offensive and something that nobody should tolerate. Look at the framing. She isn't just disagreeing. She's demanding the team issue a formal apology and make substantial policy changes just because 3 guys quietly expressed their faith. It really exposes a massive double standard. We're constantly told these theme nights are about inclusion and making sure everyone feels welcome in the stadium. But the second a player expresses a personal belief that doesn't perfectly align with the corporate mandate, they are immediately treated like a threat to the community. When you demand tolerance but refuse to tolerate someone else's deeply held religious beliefs, it completely breaks the social contract. It basically sends the message that diversity is only acceptable if you think exactly like the people in charge.
It's just, you got to follow the money. It's where the sports are getting their money, and who's going to complain the loudest. But I think this time MLB screwed up. I mean, MLB, remember, they didn't fine anybody for taking a knee. Remember that? So for Black Lives Matter, it's fine. But for Christians standing up for their, deeply held religious beliefs is not okay. So I think Americans are sick of this. And, I'm tired of like Christianity being the doormat for everybody else's beliefs to be stepped on us. And it's like, listen, I'm not against, gay pride, gay rights, but shoving it in your face, it's like, enough. You have to do this. Otherwise, you're a bigot. And look, I don't have to do anything. It doesn't make me a bigot. I mean, just like, I think it's about these people's beliefs have to be respected. It's like you can't make somebody bake something that they don't want to bake, whether it's a cake for a gay wedding. That's their particular right. The Supreme Court already won that. So I think Major League Baseball is in jeopardy here legally. And I think this is against their First Amendment rights for sure. And it's against the civil.
Did you catch that comparison? That is the absolute kill shot to the league's entire argument. Just a few years ago, Major League Baseball, and really every major sports league, was actively encouraging players to take a knee and wear political slogans on their cleats. They openly praised players for bringing social justice messages onto the field. But now, when a few Christian athletes write a tiny chapter and verse on their cap, suddenly it's a strict violation of uniform policy? You can't have it both ways. The legal jeopardy here is actually massive. If you allow political speech for one specific cause, but issue formal warnings and threats of suspension for religious speech, you are walking right into a civil rights nightmare. You are basically weaponizing a neutral uniform rule to discriminate against a specific group of Christians. It makes you wonder who is actually pulling the strings in the front office, because the hypocrisy is so blatant, they aren't even trying to hide it anymore.
I think the Pride Night sports leagues, hey, we're going to celebrate the sexuality of anybody, I think is long since past in terms of its significance. And I actually think, again, it's working against gay people now, because when you mandate speech, you have moved from, hey, we're seeking tolerant respect for our choices, just allow us to live as we see fit, to I have to celebrate the way that you are choosing to live. So if you're these Giants players, you come into your locker room, they give you a rainbow hat. You're like, what are we doing here? I don't understand how Major League Baseball's position can be, we're going to mandate that you wear these uniforms, and that is a form of speech, clearly. But if you disagree with the speech that we are mandating, we're going to punish you if you speak out against the mandate.
Listen to how he breaks down the psychology of what's actually happening in that locker room. There is a massive leap from asking society for basic respect to forcing individuals to wear a symbol they fundamentally disagree with. When a sports league mandates that every single player wear a pride hat, it stops being about celebration and instantly becomes compelled speech. You're giving these guys an ultimatum. Wear the corporate messaging, or we will publicly shame and discipline you. Think about the tension that creates before they even step onto the diamond. These are professional athletes paid to win games, and suddenly they are being subjected to a corporate purity test. It actively creates resentment where there didn't need to be any. If the goal of these theme nights is actually to bring people together, forcing mandatory participation has the exact opposite effect. It sorts the locker room into the compliant and the non-compliant, which is toxic for any team culture.
At least one top Republican says he wants to investigate Major League Baseball for alleged religious discrimination after 3 players wrote Bible verses on their Pride Night hats. You see the verses there on the hats of San Francisco Giants pitcher Landon Robb, J.T. Brubaker, and Ryan Walker. Now, Robb's verse comes from Genesis, which reads in part that the rainbow symbol serves as a, quote, sign of the covenant between God and the earth. After he lost Friday's game, Robb explained why he did it.
Thankfully, we live in a country where, we have the freedom to believe what we want. So, and express what we want.
Now, MLB warned the players that they can't write the phrases on their hats going forward, prompting Florida's Attorney General to tell MLB they'll be hearing from his office. Even Vice President Vance weighed in, saying, quote, Trump won. We don't have to do this anymore.
Okay, look at the actual picture at the center of this firestorm. He's not out there screaming into a microphone or organizing a protest. He's incredibly calm, just explaining that his faith is important to him and that he believes in the freedom to express it. The contrast between his relaxed demeanor and the absolute hysteria from the people trying to cancel him is wild. The phrase he wrote was literally just Genesis and a chapter number. He didn't cross out the Pride logo or deface the uniform in a hostile way. He just added his own personal truth next to the mandated one. But to the league, that silent, peaceful addition is treated like an act of rebellion. It perfectly illustrates how corporate inclusion initiatives have completely lost the plot. If your version of freedom requires punishing a guy for quietly believing in God, you aren't actually advocating for freedom. You're just demanding submission.
Decided to have a little finger painting party where they ChatGPT'd what Clayton Kershaw wrote on his hat. While Roop was ordering fabric pens off of Amazon, he could have been researching that Suzuki was one of the best sinker pitchers in baseball. It would have saved him 2 of the earned runs of the 4 he would end up giving up before the 5th. Precedents for teams to give greater suspensions, as seen here when Chris Sale took a pocket knife to a bunch of jerseys. The greater problem is just misogyny. These men look at anything feminine or feminine adjacent as not having as much value and limiting an opportunity.
Notice the sheer vitriol coming from this creator. It's not just criticism, it's an active attempt to dehumanize these players, calling them names, trashing their stats, and somehow twisting a Bible verse into an accusation of deep-seated misogyny. It's a perfect snapshot of how radicalized online discourse has become. When someone steps out of line with the progressive consensus, the reaction isn't debate, it's immediate character assassination. What's fascinating is that this level of anger is exactly what corporate leagues are terrified of. The MLB isn't cracking down on these pitchers because they care about uniform regulations. They're cracking down because they are terrified of online mobs like this one targeting their sponsors. It's a hostage situation. The loudest, most aggressive voices on social media are essentially dictating the policies of billion-dollar sports franchises, while the actual fans sitting in the bleachers just want to watch 9 innings of baseball without a political lecture.
The Texas Rangers are the only team in Major League Baseball that does not host a Pride Night. This week, they're hosting Faith and Family Night instead, and Florida's Attorney General posting on X, MLB will be hearing from his office.
Wait, pause right here. Did you realize the Texas Rangers are the only team in the entire league refusing to play this game? 30 teams in Major League Baseball, and only one had the backbone to say, "We are just going to stick to baseball." Instead of bowing to the pressure, they host a faith and family night. And guess what? Their stadium hasn't burned down, the franchise is thriving, and they recently won a World Series. It proves that all this corporate virtue signaling is a choice, not a requirement. Teams are willingly walking into these PR nightmares because their front offices are living in an echo chamber. The Rangers are quietly sitting in the corner, focused entirely on the sport, and completely avoiding the toxic culture wars tearing the rest of the league apart. It makes you wonder how many other owners wish they had the courage to just pull the plug on these mandated theme nights entirely.
Congress accused baseball's commissioner of discriminating against Christians, but we've heard from the league and they say it's not about the message itself, right?
Ryan, that's what they're saying, and it's been interesting. We have heard from multiple lawmakers today. You mentioned several. I also want to share a few words from Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, who said that his office sent a letter to the commissioner of Major League Baseball today, reading in part that Americans of every creed are entitled to confidence, that the institutions of our national pastime will not single out religious expression for punishment while celebrating messages of the league's own choosing. I trust the league shares that commitment. Ryan, Senator Hawley went on to mention a period during 2020 when the MLB temporarily suspended some of their equipment rules to allow progressive slogans and messages to be written on players' cleats following the death of George Floyd. Later today, MLB did respond with a statement of their own, sharing those words with you now here. In response, they say this routine verbal warning was not to wear the hat in future games, is not disciplinary, and had absolutely nothing to do with the content of the message. We respect players' right to free expression. However, writing of any kind with any message is prohibited per MLB uniform regulation.
Read between the lines of this official league statement. The PR spin is working overtime. They are desperately trying to claim that this routine warning had absolutely nothing to do with the content of the message. They want you to believe this is just about strict uniform codes. But we all know that is a complete lie. The hat itself, the mandated Pride logo, is a message. You cannot legally mandate one specific ideological message, punish players who add a religious message, and then try to hide behind a neutral uniform policy. The rule is only strictly enforced when it's a message the front office disagrees with. If a player had written a corporate-approved slogan on their hat, the MLB would be selling replicas of it in the team store the next morning. This statement is pure damage control because the league realizes they've stumbled into a massive religious discrimination trap, and they are terrified of the impending lawsuits.
It's written on your cap. What was the specific chapter and verse that you had?
Yeah, 12 through 16. It's just about God's covenant and a promise that he makes to us. That, you know, his faithfulness and his mercy. And it's just kind of something I believe in, and I stand firm in that. And thankfully, we live in a country where, you know, we have the freedom to believe what we want. So
this brings us right back to the core issue. Listen to how genuinely he speaks about his beliefs. He's talking about faithfulness, mercy, and standing firm in a promise. There is zero malice in his voice. Yet the governing body of his sport looked at this guy and decided he was a problem that needed to be managed. We are living in a cultural moment where authentic faith is viewed with intense suspicion by corporate institutions. They want athletes to be perfectly sanitized products who only endorse the latest trending social cause. But real human beings don't work that way. The fact that expressing gratitude and relying on your faith is now considered a controversial, punishable offense shows exactly how far the pendulum has swung. Eventually, fans and players are going to hit a breaking point because nobody wants to be lectured to every single time they turn on a game. The backlash is only getting worse from here. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.